Daniel Carter was sitting in his home office in Austin, Texas, reviewing code for his software engineering project when his phone rang. The name on the screen made his stomach tense, Mom. He should have let it go to voicemail. He should have known better. But some part of him, the part that still hoped his family could be normal, made him answer. Hi, Mom. His mother Karen's voice came through sharp and demanding, no greeting, no warmth. Daniel, I need you to transfer $50,000 to Tyler's account by tomorrow. He's starting a business and he needs capital. Family helps family. Daniel's hand froze on his mouse. $50,000. Just like that. No please, no asking if he could afford it, just a demand. As if his bank account existed solely to fund his younger brother's latest scheme. If you've ever been treated like an ATM by your own family, if you've ever been guilted into giving money you knew you'd never see again, this story is for you. Because what Daniel is about to discover will shock you, and the stand he's about to take will change everything. But before we dive into this toxic family nightmare, if you appreciate real stories about setting boundaries and standing up for yourself, I'd love for you to join our community by subscribing. Your support helps us keep sharing these important stories. Now, let's get back to the phone call that would finally push Daniel to his breaking point. Mom, $50,000 is a lot of money. What kind of business is Tyler starting? That's none of your concern. He's your brother and he needs help. Or have you forgotten where you came from now that you're making six figures at your fancy tech job? There it was. The guilt trip. The accusation that success somehow made Daniel a bad person, a bad son, a bad brother. As if working 80-hour weeks, teaching himself to code, putting himself through college while working 3 jobs, was something he should feel ashamed of. I haven't forgotten anything, Mom. But I need more information before I hand over that kind of money. What's the business plan? Has Tyler done any market research? Does he have a business model? Karen's voice turned ice cold. Are you seriously interrogating your own brother like he's some stranger asking for a loan? This is family, Daniel. Family doesn't ask questions. Family helps. Family also respects each other enough to be transparent about money. I've lent Tyler money before. Lent? You make it sound like we owe you something. After everything I did for you growing up, after all the sacrifices I made raising you and your brother alone, you want to nickel and dime your own family? Daniel closed his eyes, trying to control his rising anger. This was the pattern. Every time. He'd express a boundary, and his mother would weaponize her single-parent struggles against him. Never mind that Daniel had been working since he was 14 to help support the family. Never mind that he'd given Tyler his entire college fund when his brother claimed he wanted to go to university, only to watch Tyler drop out after 1 semester. Mom, I'm not trying to be difficult. But $50,000 is a significant amount. I need to understand what it's for. You know what? Forget it. Forget I asked. I'll tell Tyler that his own brother, who has more money than he knows what to do with, refused to help him. I'll tell him that family means nothing to you anymore. That you've become one of those people who values money over blood. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I spent 18 years raising you. Feeding you. Clothing you. Keeping a roof over your head. And now when I ask for one favor, you treat me like a criminal. You're not asking for a favor. You're demanding $50,000 with no explanation. And you're being selfish. I'm ashamed to call you my son right now. The line went dead. Karen had hung up on him. Daniel sat there, staring at his phone, feeling the familiar mixture of guilt and anger churning in his stomach. This was how it always went. His mother would demand something, he'd hesitate, she'd attack him emotionally, and he'd end up feeling like the bad guy. But not this time. This time, Daniel had recorded the call. He'd started recording all conversations with his mother and brother 6 months ago, after his therapist suggested it might help him see the patterns of manipulation more clearly. And this call was a perfect example. Daniel saved the recording to his laptop, backed it up to the cloud, and then did something he'd never done before. He texted his mother back, "The answer is no. I will not be giving Tyler $50,000. If he has a legitimate business proposal, he can present it to me in writing with a formal business plan. Otherwise, this conversation is over." He turned off his phone and went back to work, his hands shaking slightly. He'd stood up to his mother. For the first time in his 34 years, he'd said no without backing down, without explaining himself to death, without letting guilt override his better judgment. What Daniel didn't know was that his refusal would trigger a chain of events that would expose his family's true nature and force him to make decisions that would change his life forever. The next morning, Daniel woke up to discover he'd been blocked on all social media by both his mother and Tyler. His phone had dozens of missed calls from his aunts, his cousins, even family friends he hadn't spoken to in years. When he checked his voicemail, the messages were all variations of the same theme: "How could you abandon your family? Your mother is heartbroken. Tyler is devastated that his own brother won't help him succeed." But the worst was a Facebook post from Tyler that had been shared hundreds of times. In it, Tyler wrote a long, emotional story about how he'd been trying to start a business to support their aging mother, how he'd turned to his wealthy tech executive brother for help, and how Daniel had laughed in his face and told him to figure it out himself. Every word was a lie. Every single word. Daniel felt rage building in his chest. He wanted to respond immediately, to defend himself, to share the recording of his mother's manipulative phone call. But something stopped him. Years of being the responsible one, the one who didn't make scenes, the one who kept family drama private. Was that instinct protecting him, or was it protecting his abusers? Daniel called his therapist for an emergency session. Dr. Martinez listened to the recording of Karen's phone call and read Tyler's Facebook post. Then she asked Daniel a question that would change everything: "How long has this been going on?" "What do you mean? How long have they been using you as a bank? How long have they been emotionally manipulating you into giving them money?" Daniel thought about it. Really thought about it. "Since I got my first real job after college. 7 years. And how much money have you given them in those 7 years?" Daniel had never actually calculated it. He pulled up his bank records and started going through them. Transfers to Tyler. Cash given to his mother. Paid bills. Bought groceries. A car repair here. Rent assistance there. Christmas gifts that cost thousands of dollars because anything less would be insulting. By the time he finished calculating, the number made him physically ill. $83,000. In 7 years, he'd given his family $83,000. And not once had any of it been paid back. Not once had anyone said thank you without immediately asking for more. "Daniel," Dr. Martinez said gently, "what you're describing is financial abuse. Your family is using you as a resource, not treating you as a person. And when you set a boundary, they're punishing you publicly to coerce you back into compliance." "But they're my family. They struggled. My mom raised us alone after my dad left. They needed help." "Did they? Or did they need you to believe they needed help so you'd keep giving?" That question haunted Daniel for the rest of the day. He started looking more carefully at his family's finances, or at least what he knew of them. His mother had bought a new car last year. Tyler always had the latest iPhone, the newest gaming console, expensive clothes. Their house, which Daniel had helped with the mortgage on multiple occasions, should have been paid off by now given how long his mother had owned it. Where was all the money actually going? Daniel made a decision. He was going to hire a private investigator. Not because he wanted to hurt his family, but because he needed to understand what was really happening. If they were actually struggling and he was being selfish, he'd help them create a sustainable financial plan. But if they were manipulating him, he needed to know. The private investigator, a woman named Janet Chen, took the case and promised results within 2 weeks. What she found was worse than Daniel had imagined. Tyler wasn't trying to start a legitimate business. He was involved in a cryptocurrency pyramid scheme and had lost over $100,000. He owed money to several people, some of whom were making threats. The $50,000 wasn't for starting a business. It was to pay off debts to avoid consequences. Karen, Daniel's mother, knew all of this. She'd been helping Tyler hide his losses from the family. But more than that, Karen had been lying about her own financial situation for years. The house wasn't struggling with mortgage payments. It was fully paid off. Karen had been collecting the money Daniel sent for mortgage help and using it for vacations, shopping sprees, and bailing Tyler out of his various financial disasters. But the worst discovery was the identity theft. Tyler had used Daniel's social security number to open 3 credit cards. The cards had a combined balance of $45,000, all in Daniel's name, all destroying Daniel's credit score without his knowledge. Tyler had been making minimum payments to keep the accounts active but had no intention of ever paying them off. Daniel sat in Janet's office, reading through the report, feeling like he was going to be sick. This wasn't just manipulation. This was crime. His own family had been systematically defrauding him for years. "What do I do?" Daniel asked. Janet's expression was sympathetic but firm. "You report the identity theft to the police and the credit bureaus. You file a police report against Tyler. And you cut contact with anyone who was complicit in this." "That's my whole family." "I know. But Daniel, they're not treating you like family. They're treating you like a victim." If you're shocked by what Daniel discovered, drop the word "stolen" in the comments. Because this story is about to get even more intense. And if you want to see how Daniel handles this betrayal, make sure you're subscribed. What happens next will leave you speechless. Daniel spent 3 days in a fog, trying to process what he'd learned. $45,000 in fraudulent debt. $83,000 in manipulated loans. Years of lies and emotional abuse. His family hadn't just used him. They'd systematically exploited him while making him feel guilty for not giving more. He called the police and filed a report for identity theft. The detective who took his statement looked grim. "This is actually more common than people think. Family members steal from each other all the time. The hard part is that you're going to have to prosecute your brother if you want this off your credit report." "What happens if I prosecute?" "Depends on the amount and the circumstances. With $45,000 in fraudulent charges, he's looking at potential felony charges. Could be prison time." Daniel felt sick. "And if I don't prosecute?" "Then the debt stays in your name. You're responsible for it. And your credit is destroyed." It wasn't a real choice. Daniel filed the full police report, naming Tyler as the perpetrator. He contacted the credit card companies with the police report number and began the process of disputing the charges. He froze his credit with all 3 bureaus. He changed every password on every account he had. And then he did something that felt both liberating and terrifying. He went completely no contact. He blocked his mother's number. He blocked Tyler. He blocked every family member who had been sending him guilt trip messages. He deleted his Facebook account where Tyler's lies were still spreading. He disappeared from his family's life completely. The silence was strange at first. For weeks, Daniel kept expecting angry voicemails, showing up at his door, some kind of dramatic confrontation. But nothing came. It was almost as if his family had given up the moment he stopped being useful. 3 months into no contact, Daniel's doorbell rang. He opened the door to find a process server with legal documents. His mother was suing him. The lawsuit claimed that Daniel owed her money for services rendered during his childhood and adolescence, including food, shelter, clothing, and emotional support. The amount she was suing for: $150,000. Daniel stared at the papers in disbelief. His mother was actually claiming that he owed her money for raising him. For feeding him as a child. For being his parent. He called a lawyer immediately. The attorney, Michael Park, read through the lawsuit and actually laughed. This is the most ridiculous thing I've seen in 20 years of practice. You can't sue your child for the cost of raising them. That's not how parenting works. This will be thrown out immediately. So I don't have to worry about it. Legally? No. But reputation-wise, this is going to be messy. Your mother filed this in civil court, which means it's public record. If she talks to the media or posts about it online, it could damage your professional reputation. Daniel felt cold dread in his stomach. What do I do? We file a motion to dismiss, which will be granted. Then we countersue for the identity theft, for the fraudulent money obtained under false pretenses, and for defamation based on your brother's Facebook post. We go nuclear. We make them regret ever starting this. Daniel hesitated. Going to war with his family legally felt like crossing a line he could never uncross. But then he remembered the $83,000. The $45,000 in credit card fraud. The years of manipulation and guilt trips. The fact that even now, even after everything, his mother's first instinct was to attack him rather than take responsibility for anything. Do it, Daniel said. File everything. The legal battle that followed was brutal. Karen hired a lawyer who played up the abandoned single mother angle, painting Daniel as a cold, heartless son who'd gotten rich and forgotten where he came from. The local news actually picked up the story, running a segment titled, "When Success Destroys Family Bonds." But Daniel's lawyer had evidence. Recordings of Karen's manipulative phone calls. Bank statements showing the money Daniel had given them. The police report about Tyler's identity theft. Janet Chen's investigative report documenting the lies about their financial situation. And most damning of all, text messages between Karen and Tyler discussing how to milk Daniel for everything while he was still willing to give. When Michael Park presented this evidence in court, the judge's expression turned from sympathetic to disgusted. Karen's lawsuit was not only dismissed, but the judge ordered her to pay Daniel's legal fees and issued a stern warning about filing frivolous lawsuits. Then came Daniel's countersuit. Tyler was officially charged with identity theft and fraud. The FBI got involved because the credit cards had been used across state lines, making it a federal crime. Karen was charged as an accessory for her knowledge and participation in hiding the fraud. The family who had called Daniel selfish, who had painted him as the villain, were now facing serious legal consequences. And they had no one to blame but themselves. Daniel should have felt victorious. He should have felt vindicated. Instead, he just felt sad. This was his family. These were the people who were supposed to love him, protect him, support him. And they'd spent years treating him like a resource to be exploited. 6 months after the legal proceedings began, Tyler took a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to identity theft and fraud, received 3 years probation, and was ordered to pay full restitution to Daniel for the $45,000 in fraudulent charges. He'd also have to complete community service and attend financial management classes. The criminal record would follow him forever. Karen escaped criminal charges but was ordered to repay $20,000 to Daniel as compensation for the mortgage assistance he'd provided under false pretenses. The judge determined that she'd committed fraud by misrepresenting her financial situation to obtain money from her son. Neither Karen nor Tyler apologized. They didn't reach out to make amends. Instead, they played the victim to anyone who would listen, claiming Daniel had destroyed his family over money. Some people believed them. Distant relatives took sides. The family completely fractured. But something interesting happened. Daniel's extended family members who had initially condemned him started reaching out privately. His Aunt Susan called him one night, her voice shaking. "Daniel, I owe you an apology. Your mother told me you'd refuse to help Tyler because you were greedy. She said you'd become obsessed with money and didn't care about family anymore." I believed her. But then I saw the court documents that became public record. I saw what they did to you. And I realized your mother has been lying to all of us for years. Other relatives followed. Cousins who had been told Daniel was the bad guy came forward with their own stories of how Karen and Tyler had borrowed money from them and never paid it back. How they played family members against each other. How the manipulation had been going on for decades, and Daniel was just the first person to finally say no and mean it. Daniel learned that he wasn't his family's only victim. He was just the one with the deepest pockets and the most patience. Tyler had borrowed thousands from their uncle and never paid it back. Karen had convinced a cousin to co-sign a loan and then defaulted, destroying the cousin's credit. There was a pattern of financial abuse that stretched back years, and Daniel's refusal to participate anymore had finally exposed it. 1 year after going no contact, Daniel received a certified letter from his grandmother's estate attorney. His grandmother, his father's mother who had passed away when Daniel was in college, had left him something. A trust fund worth $250,000 that was supposed to be given to Daniel when he turned 25. Daniel stared at the letter in confusion. He'd never received any trust fund. He'd struggled through college, worked multiple jobs, taken out student loans. Where had this money been? The attorney explained. Your grandmother set up the trust with your mother as the trustee, with instructions to give you access when you turn 25. But your mother never told you about it. She's been the trustee for 9 years, and she never released the funds to you as directed by the will. Is that legal? No. It's breach of fiduciary duty and possibly theft. Your grandmother's will was very clear about the terms. You should have had access to this money nearly a decade ago. Daniel felt a rage unlike anything he'd experienced before. His mother had hidden a trust fund from him. While he was drowning in student loans, working himself to exhaustion, struggling to make ends meet, there had been $250,000 that was legally his. Money his grandmother had left specifically to help him build a life. And Karen had hidden it. Possibly spent some of it, given the attorney's hedging language about investigating the account status. The attorney continued, I've been trying to contact you for months, but your mother claims she didn't have your current information. I finally tracked you down through your employer. I'm sorry it took so long. We'll need to do an audit of the trust account to see if any funds were improperly withdrawn. The audit revealed that Karen had taken $75,000 from the trust over the years. Trustee fees, she'd paid herself. Administrative costs, for managing the account. None of it was justified under the trust terms. She'd stolen from her own son's inheritance. Daniel filed yet another lawsuit, this time to recover the stolen trust funds and remove his mother as trustee. The case was open and shut. Karen was ordered to repay the $75,000 and was permanently barred from serving as a trustee for anyone ever again. When the remaining trust funds were finally released to Daniel, along with the restitution payments from Tyler and Karen, Daniel found himself with a significant amount of money. Money that should have changed his life years ago. Money that his grandmother had worked hard to leave him, wanting to give him opportunities she'd never had. Daniel used some of it to pay off the last of his student loans. He invested the rest. He didn't buy a fancy car or a bigger house. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. He just wanted financial security and peace of mind, things that had been stolen from him for far too long. 2 years after going no contact, Daniel got a call from a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Daniel? It's Aunt Susan. I'm sorry to call, but I thought you should know. Your mother is in the hospital. She had a heart attack. Daniel's first instinct was to feel nothing. Then came a complicated wave of emotions. Guilt, anger, sadness, relief, and something he couldn't quite name. Is she going to be okay? They think so. But Daniel, she's asking for you. She says she needs to see you. Did she apologize? There was a long pause. No. She's telling everyone that you need to forgive her now, that she almost died and you should let it go. There it was. Even facing mortality, Karen couldn't take responsibility. She couldn't apologize. She could only make demands and expect Daniel to comply. Tell her I hope she recovers, Daniel said. But I won't be visiting. Daniel, she's your mother. She stopped being my mother the moment she decided to exploit me instead of love me. Blood doesn't give you the right to abuse someone. Even if that blood created you. Susan was quiet. I understand. I just wanted you to know. After hanging up, Daniel sat with his feelings. A therapist might say he needed to visit his mother for closure. A religious person might say he needed to forgive for his own peace of mind. His friends were split on what he should do. But Daniel realized something important. He didn't owe his abusers forgiveness. He didn't owe them closure. He didn't owe them anything. The only person he owed anything to was himself, and what he owed himself was protection from people who had spent years harming him. 3 weeks later, Susan called again. Your mother is out of the hospital. She's recovering well. And Daniel, I think you should know something. She's telling everyone that you refused to visit her on her deathbed. She's making you out to be a monster again. Daniel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Of course she is. That's what she does. And you know what? I don't care anymore. People who believe her without asking my side aren't people I need in my life. Let her tell whatever story she wants. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's enough. Years passed. Daniel built a life he was proud of. He got promoted at work. He started dating a woman named Lisa who came from a healthy family and couldn't understand his family dynamics until he explained them in detail. He went to therapy regularly. He built friendships with people who respected him and didn't see him as a bank account. He never heard from Tyler again after the legal proceedings ended. Last he heard through the family grapevine, Tyler had moved to another state and was working in retail, still struggling financially because he'd never learned how to manage money responsibly. Karen stayed in her house, supported by the few family members who still believed her version of events. She never apologized. She never acknowledged what she'd done. According to relatives, she'd convinced herself that she was the victim in all of this, that Daniel had abandoned her out of pure selfishness. On Daniel's 39th birthday, 5 years after going no contact, he received a letter. It was from Tyler. Daniel almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. The letter was short. I need to tell you something. Mom is sick again. Cancer. She doesn't have long. She's asking for you. I know you have no reason to come. I know what we did was unforgivable. But she's dying, and I thought you should know. Whatever you decide, I get it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I was a terrible brother, and you deserved better. That's all I wanted to say. Daniel read the letter 3 times. Tyler sounded different. Genuine, maybe. Or maybe this was just another manipulation, a deathbed attempt to bring Daniel back into the fold. Lisa found him sitting with the letter. What are you going to do? I don't know. Part of me thinks I should go. See her one last time. Get some kind of closure. And the other part? The other part knows that she'll use her dying breath to blame me for something. That's who she is. And I don't need to subject myself to that. What does your therapist say? Daniel smiled slightly. She says it's my choice. That there's no right answer. That I should do what feels authentic to me, not what society says I should do. Daniel thought about it for days. He imagined going to the hospital. He imagined his mother in a bed, weak and small. He imagined her apologizing, finally taking responsibility. He imagined forgiveness and peace and closure. But he also imagined her using her illness to manipulate him one last time. Demanding things. Making him feel guilty. Refusing to apologize and instead insisting he was obligated to forgive her simply because she was dying. In the end, Daniel wrote a letter back. He didn't send it to his mother. He sent it to Tyler. I appreciate you reaching out and apologizing. That means something. But I won't be visiting Mom. Not because I'm cold or heartless, but because I've spent years healing from the damage she caused. Seeing her now, especially without a genuine apology and acknowledgement of her actions, would undo that healing. I don't wish her suffering. I hope she finds peace. But my peace matters too. And protecting my peace means staying away from people who hurt me, even if they're dying. I hope you understand. Take care of yourself, Tyler. I mean that. 2 months later, Susan called to tell him Karen had passed away. Daniel felt a strange emptiness, but not grief exactly. More like the closing of a chapter he'd already processed and moved past. She asked about you at the end, Susan said. She said she wished things had been different. But she never apologized. No. She never quite got there. Of course not. Some people go to their graves believing they were right, even when mountains of evidence prove otherwise. Karen had been one of those people. Daniel didn't go to the funeral. He sent flowers with a card that said simply, "Rest in peace." Some relatives criticized his absence. Others understood. And Daniel realized that other people's opinions about his choices didn't matter. He'd lived through the abuse. He'd done the work to heal. He'd set the boundaries necessary to protect himself. No one else got to judge those choices. So what do you think? Was Daniel right to refuse to visit his dying mother? Would you have made the same choice, or would you have gone for closure? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. There's no right answer here, just different paths through impossible situations. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about boundaries and family and the courage it takes to protect yourself, hit that subscribe button. We're here every week with stories that matter, stories that explore the complexity of family relationships and the strength it takes to choose yourself. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.